Hi, welcome back to the Project Revival podcast. I'm Laura.
I'm Emily.
And we are going to be jumping back into kind of our social media podcast. So Emily's going to jump into some of the ways that we can actually take what we've learned in the last episode and actually apply them to help in this department.
Yeah.
Because I think it can be really intimidating, all the stuff we said without giving some applicable things.
Social media, the problem. So now it's not necessarily the solution, but it's just a Christ-honoring way for parents to do something really practical about it. And, we kind of mentioned this last week when we were talking about phones and social media. This is not just a parenting issue.
No.
When you're looking at this from a Christian perspective, it's a discipleship issue.
Absolutely.
And the Bible tells us in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And our children's hearts are being shaped every day. It's by our influence in their lives, but also just the voices in their head everywhere they go, right? At school, church, youth group, sports, whatever it is they're doing, but also by images and now influencers.
Yes.
And whether we are constantly allowing them to look at that or not, they're still around friends who may have different rules than you do. And so all of these things go in now, and they're having to process these at a very young age.
Yeah, absolutely.
And social media disciples our kids faster and more consistently than most churches or homes.
Yeah.
And
Well, because it's more constant.
well, look at the numbers that we shared
Yeah.
in the last episode. We're talking about the number of hours. If your kid's in school 5 days a week and they're gone from you almost 40 hours a week, and then they come home and manage to find another cumulative 28 to 30 to 40 hours a week on their phones, like what's left? Hopefully sleep.
That's like a double full-time job.
Yeah,
That is
working
exhausting.
time.
Yeah.
Overtime, truthfully.
And the only thing you're getting paid for is nothing good.
Yeah, for sure. And, we're not saying that as parents, if we allow our kids to have social media, if we have them watch certain things, if the rules that you have in your home are different than someone else, like it's not because any parent doesn't care, right? But the truth is that these platforms are designed to be persistent in our kids' life, constantly sharing information with them, very emotionally driven. And also, if they have a phone, it's always in their hands. It's always available. And so there's something to be said about something that's available, right? Like if you're involved in a bad group of friends at school, but then you had to go home before you'd either sneak out of your house or you're done for the night. And, at the end of the day, what we want to really communicate is this is not a battle of rules. It's a battle of formation, like spiritual formation for our kids. And we say at North Point, I've said it to you, I say North Point a lot, but like, that's just my leadership area right now. But I'll say to students a lot of times, like, this is protective, not punitive.
Yeah.
And they may not understand, some of them don't understand that word, but like, we're not punishing you. We're not taking something away because we just think you're bad. What we're saying is like, we're trying to protect you.
Yeah.
And in this situation with some of the things we're talking about, like you may already have gone down a path, but similar to when we've talked about physical purity, sexual purity, all that, it's never too late. Like you can always choose to abide by God's standard, even if you haven't been.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really important because I think one of the primary things that we see, and it's actually our first point, is delaying the smartphone.
Yeah.
And that's really challenging. And I think I said in the last episode, my daughter is going to be 11 in a couple of days. And we've already started having the conversations of, okay, how do we answer this? Because, some of her friends already have phones.
For sure.
Luckily, not as many because we are in, a small group of kids. But she does gymnastics 9 hours a week. And she's around all kinds of different kids. And she's made some great friends. But it's different lifestyles and different family rules and standards. And, one of the things that we talked about right at the beginning when she joined this team, which mind you was last year, so she was just 10, was what do we do? Do we give her a phone? Like we're dropping her off for 9 hours a week at a warehouse out 20 minutes from where we live.
You've like met the leadership. You don't like.
I don't fully trust it. And we're still kind of trying to figure this out. The good news is her friends do have a phone, so it makes us feel a little bit better. But at the same time, like, that's kind of the almost trap that we kind of fall into as parents, and it's
like our parents didn't have that.
No.
So they had to go find a payphone, but now there's no payphone.
Exactly. Well, and it's just such a different world. And again, these kids, they don't want a flip phone. They want a smartphone. They don't want to feel weird. They
They
don't
might
want to,
probably been using an iPhone since they were
I
2.
mean,
So you're to tell them that they have a flip phone, they don't know what to do.
I know. Oh, they wouldn't even know how to dial. No, I'm speed dial one. Well, and that's the thing is, we fall into this, and someone in our family, they've got a maybe 14 or 15-year-old daughter, and same situation. She was in a sport at a young age, and they made the choice to give her a phone. She was maybe 10, 11, and we ran this past them because we're like, what did you guys do? What is your situation? And their advice to us was don't do it.
Yeah.
They literally said it is the worst decision we ever made. We opened up a can of worms that we feel like we can't put back away,
Yeah.
and it has destroyed her.
Yeah.
It has literally destroyed her.
I've
She's
actually
a different
not
person.
heard the opposite, but that's not everybody. I mean, there's a lot of things and topics we could talk about.
Oh,
where
sure.
you're like, well, like not everyone agrees, but from like a Christian and secular standpoint,
No one wants
I
it for
don't
their
feel
kid.
like most people are like, yeah, I've been really happy with that decision.
No, and that's
They
where
may feel trapped. They may not think it's overtly bad.
And see, that's what I struggle with, and I'm so thankful because like my daughter's closest friends, their moms, we've all kind of had the same. Hey, let's keep like this status quo thing of no phones going on for a while until we absolutely have to, because when one goes, that's when everybody else starts to follow. So I'm very thankful for that. But we have had the conversation with her, and I've said to her so many times, "Do I want you to be able to call me? Of course I do. Do I want you to be able to reach out to me if there's an emergency? Of course I do. Do I want you to have the world in your pocket? Absolutely not." And that is what we're doing.
Right.
We are literally saying, here's all of the horrible things of the world. Go put that in your pocket and go to your room.
Yeah.
Have a good life. Good luck. And it's just
like
too
this
much.
sounds really mean, but I'm saying this about myself too. It is actually lazy parenting.
It is.
And I'm truly not saying this from
No.
a place of like all you people. I'm saying it is easier. The path of least resistance, the path to like win a battle, but or win the war but lose the battle is just kind of like, you know what? Like I'm gonna just get over it. Yeah, like this.
No,
is,
I mean,
I'm not letting them like I'm not intentionally doing this or they don't know this yet. And then it's the
It's a
slippery
slippery slope. It's exactly what I was going to say. And we said it on the last episode. It's easier to say yes than it is to say no. And especially here's the kicker for us, I feel like, because both of our daughters are the oldest and they're kind of similar personalities in certain ways, but Lila in particular is incredibly mature for her age. I don't know how she came out that way. She's as sweet as can be. She's incredibly just loving and all the things. And so I feel like almost easier to be like, well, she's mature enough to handle it. She's the type of kid that I'd be able to say, hey, here's your boundaries, and she'd probably follow them. But my son, not so much. And if I give my daughter a phone at the age of 11, guess who's right behind her? And more importantly than that, I want her to stay mature and loving and kind and sweet and grounded in her faith. And I'm worried that that would destroy her. Why? Because Satan loves a stronghold. And I
and
believe
also
it
like
is.
the issue isn't really whether you trust your child.
It's everybody. It's kind of like driving a car.
Exactly.
We've always said, I don't worry about your driving. I worry
You're
about
going to be really careful.
everybody else on
So
the
yeah, I don't trust everybody else. Like that's how it is with everything. I mean, we are only responsible for what we instruct for our kids and how we react when they do something wrong. We cannot stop bullies. We cannot stop that like heartbreaks. We cannot stop a lot of those experiences that they go through.
No, not at all. And I think the primary thing is to obviously talk with your kids. And again, we're going to do our next episode is going to be on discernment. So we'll get a little bit more into that. But teaching your kids to talk to you, to bring it up to you, be their safe space. Don't be the parent that is like, oh my goodness, somebody said what to you on social media and freaks out because they're not going to come to you again. They're going to get too scared. So for me and my husband and I have talked about this, we're pushing this off for as long as humanly possible. I mean, we've talked about even just doing like an Apple Watch so she can call for emergencies, but I don't need her on a phone. But we're pushing this off as much as we can. But we know full well that when the time comes, we're going to sit down and have a conversation with her about what apps are okay. She will have some severe limitations. So she's going to look like she has a smartphone, but that kid's getting a dumb phone. And talking to her about the primary thing is talking to us. If there's something, and she's so good about that right now, but it just makes you so nervous that, again, like the sextortion, what happens? Can you come to us? You need to come to us, but some kids will
you feel like you're
embarrassed. Exactly.
And this is where the spiritual part of it is true. Like when we know as Christians, there's the spiritual warfare, right? But even those who are coming from a secular perspective recognize the enemy of social media,
Mhm.
right? Or this enemy of like the dark web. But the scripture is clear. In 1 Peter 5:8, it says, "Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour."
Mhm.
And the way lions do this, which is the reason why I think scripture uses the animal lion, because it could have been all kinds of different animals, is that the way they hunt is to isolate. They try to take one
away from
animal
the pack.
away from the
Yep.
pack or the herd or whatever it is, and that's when they attack.
Yeah.
And Satan loves to do that. And what better way to do that is to create something where it's the most connected we've ever been and yet the most isolated.
Absolutely.
And so he no longer needs to break into our homes.
Mm-mm.
He only needs an unlocked phone under a pillow at midnight.
Yeah. Well,
And that
and
is just, oh,
it's like, and I know a lot of people have heard this, and I think we've even said it before. Someone asked, I mean, plenty of people have done this. They've asked some form of AI, how would you take over the world? And it literally responds, I already have. And you put me in your pocket. That's literally the response from all of these different ones is, I didn't need to take over. You invited me in. You literally handed your kid a phone and invited me into your home. And, I'm not saying AI is evil, like we use it for all kinds of things, but at the same time, it does just go to show how much our reality has changed to the
Well, and what does
consumption
it
of
make us
phones.
dependent on? Like, we're dependent on technology and not a savior
Oh,
anymore,
absolutely.
You're switching that.
Yeah.
So number 1 was delay the smartphone.
Mhm.
We suggest, I mean, we don't have a hard stop age. I don't think
And I do
there's a
think some does depend on your
it's the
kid's
kid,
maturity level.
your
Yeah.
life circumstance. But
Mhm.
we think proceed with major caution
Major.
and think about the reason why.
Mhm.
Is it for a simple fix that could be fixed with something else?
Yep.
Is it because everybody's doing it and you've not really given it thought?
Yeah.
Or do you really have a kid that you feel like this is going to be a good step and you keep that open communication with? The second one is to remove harmful apps.
Yes. And I think that's the biggest thing is even if your child has a phone right now, take it back a notch.
Correct. Yeah.
And, obviously, we're not talking to this, young kids necessarily, or even the older, mature, like 18, 19-year-old. But at the same time, talk to your kids about that. I've deleted Facebook off my phone altogether because I started recognizing that, like, I was wasting my time.
Right.
Like, oh, what's everybody doing in life? And you're scrolling, and all of a sudden an hour's passed, and you're like, what am I doing?
Or how does it make you feel? Like we talked about mental health in the last episode. I personally, truly because of the foundation of my faith, I'm not saying I never compare myself.
Sure.
I do. But I'm just saying I personally don't scroll on Instagram, even if I'm like, wow, like I love how that lady does her like, bedroom or bathroom or kitchen reset at night. And like, look at that. My house is a mess as I'm sitting there watching it. But I don't sit there and that for me personally is not making me feel inferior.
No.
But I have plenty of friends, God-fearing women in my life who have had to take a break
Yes.
from social media because of the comparison that happens with that.
Yeah.
And those are grown adults with spouses and kids and serving
Well,
in
I mean,
ministries,
think about it. The Bible says that comparison is the thief of joy. So when we're sitting here scrolling and we're thinking, oh, well, we're just like wanting to see what our old friends from high school are doing now. It's like, no, you're secretly thinking, well, I posted a picture. How did they get 200 likes and mine only has 50? I mean, it's just such a subtle thing. And I think that's what's so important to remember is Satan is so good at what he does that it's not sometimes the most overtly obvious thing. It's quiet. It's let's pull this person away from their herd and isolate them in the corner. It's subtle things, but even the strongest people get pulled down.
Right.
So then you ask yourself, okay, I'm an adult. I've had a great relationship with God the majority of our life, never really wavered a lot on my faith, and yet I can do that. So what would I be doing to my 10-year-old's psyche if I'm just like, here, good luck. I hope you do well.
Yeah.
So let's say for kicks and giggles, you've got a 12-year-old at home and she already has a phone. What do you do? In my opinion, strip it back. Make that smartphone kind of a dumb phone. It can look like a smartphone all day long. That way your kid fits in or whatever they need to feel is, the thing. But bring it down to text messaging and, calls.
And then
just go back to the
literally
basics.
by the time we release this episode and by the time someone watches it, it'll be some new kind of monitoring service or thing that you can purchase or whatever, which We're not even getting into right now the rebellion of someone who is choosing to forego the rules we're talking. Like, that's not where we're at right now.
No.
There
We're
are
talking about some
there are things
practical
that
things.
everybody can get around everything.
Yeah.
So proceed with caution when we say remove harmful apps or like strip it down, basically. We're saying proceed with caution because you also have to keep in mind your kid in that regard. Like, if you've got a kid who is losing your trust, who is showing, behavior changes or attitude changes or anything like that, you may, like, at that point, it's like, I'm sorry, you've lost this. Here's your flip phone.
I think it's so important to also be like, I think sometimes when we hear things like this, right, whether it's a message or, pastor, whatever, we hear these things and we run into our teenager's room and we're like, bing, 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 I'm deleting everything off of your phone. Here's the thing, like, you don't want to feel like a prison warden in your own house. That's not going to go over well for you or for your kid.
Right.
Now, you're their parent, yes, but at the same time, you want to keep that foundation and that relationship in a way that they feel like they can come to you. They feel like they can have open conversations. So to me, don't just run in there and delete everything on their phone so when they get home from school, their phone's a brick, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure you sit down and have a conversation and say, hey, you know what? I've been really convicted recently. I want to show you why I think that maybe this isn't the best choice for you. Open your Bible, get into the Word, and say, comparison is the thief of joy. Isolation, talk about this. Get into it and say, what things do you potentially feel like are either you're wasting your time, could potentially pose a danger for you? Have you ever had anybody message you something inappropriate? I hope you can come to me. That kind of conversation. And then make those decisions together. Now we're talking again older kids. I'm not talking your 10-year-old,
It starts at a young age, unless you're going backwards, which I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's a trust thing.
That's a whole one of our points. But before we get to that one, number 3 is no phones in the bedroom.
And
I had the FBI come and do a presentation at North Point back in 2020. And before he had his whole presentation about like sextortion and all kinds of things like we've talked about, all prepared.
Yeah.
But I went up to him like, hey, like, thank you so much for being here. I'm just super for the next generation. I've got kids myself. They're really little, but I just want to be proactive. Like, how can we be proactive? I'll never forget it. He goes, you can't.
That's encouraging.
Oh, thanks. He goes, no. He's like, hear me when I say this. He's like, there is no way to keep up for every advancement we make in protecting against something.
Yeah, somebody else.
Bad guys making an advancement in pursuing that. So he goes, at the end of the day, like if I were to pick 2 things that you would do, he had one example, but the most important, the one that stood out to me, is he pointed out that when computers first came out, there was one computer in the center of the home, and you knew mom or dad could just be walking by at any time. So you're not like Googling pornography to like pull that up on the screen. Someone's walking by, or if someone was talking to you mean or something, like your mom could come read it, and it was just all shared. But he goes, no phones in isolation.
Yeah.
And our point for the purposes of this podcast is no phones in the bedroom. But I would. Because it is nearly impossible to say not in isolation, because that could be them sitting on the couch in your family room and you're not in the room.
Going to the bathroom.
We're talking about setting limits on phones in the bedroom. And the reason for that, like, obviously, is the isolation part. But the vast, vast majority, if not the majority, of the most dangerous things that happen on a device happen at night and they happen in isolation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to record an inappropriate video to send to a sex predator in front of your family or in the kitchen if that's where your phone's plugged in at night.
Yeah. And if you do, we got a whole other
problems, but like starting with that, that this is not going into your bedroom. This is not going to the bathroom is another big one. So like in isolation to the point of like a place where someone's not gonna be walking around. I'm like, I'm not being unreasonable that they're not sitting on a couch somewhere, but that's a huge one.
And I will say too, some of these principles, in my opinion, should apply to everyone. I mean, you have a stronghold on men in particular in the pornography industry.
Yeah.
And, again, I say it probably 80 times a day, more is caught than is taught. So, if you're constantly in the bathroom on your social media, laying in bed on social media, sitting on the couch while everybody else is watching a movie and you're on social media, that's what your kids will think is the appropriate way to act with them.
And you're like, well, no, you guys get an hour a day of screen time.
And they're like, but you're on it all day.
Do you want to play a game? Yeah, I'll be done soon. And we're all guilty of this, 100%.
Absolutely. But I think it's really important, again, no phones in the bedroom. The other thing too is this is one of the things that kids really dislike is monitoring, making sure that you know what's going on.
Yeah.
My son, for some reason, he's got an iPad that he's allowed to have for an hour or so a day, and he changes his password about 82 times a week. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's just like a new game to
I think it's fun. My kid asks
they,
about it.
they always do. And I always tell them, sure, but I get to know every password. You're never going to have a phone that is locked from me. Not in this house, not in our rules. And, it's fascinating because you'll even see, like, for instance, my son, I took away YouTube. First of all, I'm never a big fan of YouTube,
Sure.
but my kids were allowed to watch one or two specific things that I had filtered through. I've watched everything. And I'm like, these are the things you
Yeah.
can watch. Even then, struggle with commercials, of
Sure.
course. But point to that is I walked in on my son and he was sitting there and immediately just clicked off his screen real fast. And I was like, what you doing?
Bye.
What you doing? And he was like, oh, nothing. I'm just done. I'm tired. And I was like, not so much. I had to pretty much tackle this kid to get his iPad from him because he was worried about what I was going to see.
Yeah.
He was not watching anything inappropriate, but it wasn't what I approved.
Yeah.
And he knew full well that's line drawn. Like, you've lost my trust with it. So I think it's really important. Again, trust is such a huge thing, in my opinion, with relationship with kids, but trust is a two-way street. If they earn your trust, hey, you can have a little bit of time on social media, but let's do it in our presence, and I get to check into it whenever I feel like it. If they continue that trust, they're trustworthy to have some of those different apps and they're using their discernment. But if you walk in on them and they immediately shut their screen off, they're not ready for it. So I told my son, I said, hey, I'm sorry, buddy. Like, I think I owe you an apology. I said, I gave you access to something that you're just simply not ready for. You're too young for it. And that's on me. But what's on you is the fact that you were trying to hide something and you were trying to sneak something. So we've once again stripped it back and we've been monitoring what he's watching. You know, I have all of the things
what's
on there.
great about how you've approached this with both your kids, and then I'm right behind you with mine, is because we've walked through some of this stuff with people who have been super reactive. It's like you wait. And instead of being proactive about it, they're very reactive.
Yes.
It's had this like, mommy's watching idea. And so our fourth point is to monitor with love, not suspicion.
Yes, absolutely.
So you're not, because even though like you might be suspicious, you're monitoring it with love and a mutual trust.
Yes.
And not suspicion, so that they understand that there is nothing. And I've told my kid at 7 years old, I've told my kid this. I said, like he's gotten in trouble or if it's the same thing. It's like putting in a password to extend your screen time or like watching something that wasn't bad, but you're kind of like, no, it's the principle.
It's the heart behind the issue.
We are going to have open line of communication about this at all time. And there's a reason why we're talking about this, right? Like your identity is in Christ. It's not in social media. It's not in YouTube. It's not in influencers and everything else. But when you're monitoring with love, not suspicion, the idea about that is that you're talking about this. And that leads us to our fifth point, which is to talk about identity daily.
Yes.
And to teach them about
the why, not just the role.
And why.
I remember a long time ago, a pastor, I said, I try to explain to my kids why I don't want them to like stick their fingers in a, electrical outlet. And he said, yes, that's great. But also you just need to be able to say no and have your kid listen. I'm like, don't disagree with you at all. But here's the problem. To me, if I just say no to everything, they're not understanding that the heart behind it is why I want you to follow this. And these two things cannot align together. So let's talk about why we don't do social media. Why don't I post pictures of you on the internet? Why don't we do these?
Because I said so.
No.
Because there's also a different consequence to different actions.
Correct. Yeah.
So I tell you, sit down and eat your green beans and you don't, that's just a disrespect disobedience issue. I tell you, don't stick your hand in the fireplace and you do anyway, you've got third-degree burns.
Yes.
Exactly. I tell you, let me know what you're watching and don't, sneak it and nothing happens, but you're just in trouble. You're grounded, but you're older and you do this.
Right.
Now you've been sextorted.
Well, and that's the thing is, if you don't explain the why, they don't understand the consequence either. So like if you just walk in and you're like, oh, I can't believe you're doing that. Don't do that again. You've lost this for the next month. They're like, what did I do? And then they're going to constantly do it again because they don't understand.
I've done something wrong. Now, again, this is the danger of the social media part of the, like almost like the dark web, because it is true. And both things, like, they're not mutually exclusive. It is true that a child should honor their mother and father.
Absolutely.
They should just trust that you have their best interest at heart. And if I say no, then you don't, even if you don't know the why, you should just conform to what I'm saying because I'm your parent. But we also know the reality of, like, so then if you've just set it up to where you don't do this, you've quote, failed me or disappointed me or disobeyed me, and there's a consequence.
Right.
So then what happens when, unbeknownst to them, the person they're talking to that they thought was a 14-year-old friend is a 42-year-old sex offender in Texas, real story.
True.
And that person begins to manipulate them and blackmail them and threaten their family and threaten their identity and threaten them with suicidality and thoughts of those things. And they're so overwhelmed. And when you read some of the studies on this, or the articles, I should say, about the real things that have happened, these kids are flooded with hundreds of messages in the course of a couple of hours.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Like, send me this, send me, send me. Like, it's over and over and over again. And they'll put things together. And the video the FBI showed, it only showed someone from behind. It was like an actor, obviously, but it was trying to show how this girl was crying in her room, closed door, with her phone, after having something manipulated to tell her to send a video. And it shows the start of her crying. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And then it pans off to the back of someone sitting at a computer, and that video sent, and it shows him drag the file to her name into a folder with all these other names of children on the computer. Gives me chills talking about it. From seeing that. And yet the parents, when we made it mandatory, we had all 7th and 12th grade parents go. Those parents were like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can I bring my kid back?
I know.
And knowledge is power. Like,
Yes.
understanding is power. We can't live where we just kind of like turn a blind eye and act like this isn't a big thing, because their identity needs to be in Christ. They need to be rooted in that. They need to understand that the enemy is real. They need to understand that you need to focus on what is pure and holy and right and true and think about those things. They need to understand that comparison is the thief of joy, and the intention behind us keeping you from something that everybody else is doing is to keep you from drowning yourself in comparison.
Right. Exactly.
And that's what you have to talk about every single day. Every single day with your kids. So exactly like what your note said, I think, it talked about, like, our job is to protect their heart. So they can't look at it again, protected, not punitive. Those conversations. I would encourage you, with 1 in 7 children being approached online, you have to ask the specific, explicit question. Has anyone asked you to send an inappropriate picture? You have to. And you need to tell them, and I mean this with all sincerity, parents, you need to tell your kids that there is nothing that you can do, have sent to you, or send, or say, or do. Nothing is too far gone from you sharing that with me and your dad. Ever. You will never get in trouble for being honest with me, because there are kids who are committing suicide instead
of talking to their parents.
Parents.
Well, and that's the thing, is I also think explaining what these apps do, because I think, Snapchat was a big problem, and I mean, it still is, but I think parents are a little bit more aware now.
And there's new ones,
Yeah, and kids just thought it goes away. It's not there, and it's like, okay, guys, come on. Like, if you send it, even if it's a text message, it's there.
It's your digital footprint.
There, it is always there.
Digital footprint.
But I think making sure, like you said, that, like, the kids understand the heart behind the issue. It is our heart to protect you, but it's also our heart to teach you how to protect yourself in these situations, because we're not going to always be there to protect our kids. So, and that's where we'll jump in next week with discernment, because that's a big thing that I talk about with my kids. And I love, in particular, my daughter. She's really great at this. Anytime she hears anything on anything she's watching, she pauses it. She runs into my room. We talk about it. She shows me. She says, what does this mean? We have an open conversation. But on top of that, I will never give her or my son a phone without literally sharing the risk to them, not to scare them, but to give them reality, to say there may be a time. It's like smoking and drugs when we were kids. There may be a time that someone asks you if you want to have a cigarette,
but you'll be addicted for the rest of your life, and you'll never have any success at all.
Well, and that's the thing, though. Like,
it's 9 p.m. Do you know where
we
your
would
kids
talk about that.
For sure.
But why don't we talk about the risks that are 10 times more dangerous to our kids?
And if you're listening to this and you're going, but they're too young.
No,
I can't talk to them about that. If that was your answer and you still put a device in their hands,
we got a problem.
There is accountability for when this stuff happens. Once we know, again, not to parent shame. That's not what we're saying. But also at the same time, we would never stick, like, and I've used this analogy with my husband. I'm like, if we heard that 10 women had walked through this alley
Mhm.
on over the weekend, and 7 of the 10 were assaulted.
Yeah.
Would we let Kate walk down that alley, but by
That's
just being
right.
like, "Hey, honey, like, here's a whistle,
Yeah.
and here's
Be
some pepper
safe.
spray,
Yep.
and you let me know if there's any problems, and on the other side, there's someone there waiting for you." Like, you would are you kidding me?
No.
Now that seems so, like, ridiculous, but at the
But
same
it's
time, it's
not.
not because you're literally
Yeah.
we're sitting on our phone reading articles about kids who have killed themselves
Mhm.
because they've gotten wrapped up in things online while our kids are in another room on their same devices, and maybe they had something flash across the screen that makes them feel guilty or
Mhm.
makes them feel uncomfortable,
Yep.
and they don't share it.
Kind of like clicking that screen as
Another
fast as you
huge
could.
thing that I wanna make sure that I share, it's not even in our notes, is that I've talked to parents about before. So there's a couple things that can happen for kids. So when kids are addicted to social media, which everyone is, if you have it, you're addicted to it.
Yep.
Don't pretend you're not. But when they're addicted to something, or they've had all these rules laid out, or these kind of like, hey, be aware of this. This is
Yeah,
what can
yeah.
happen if they have an awareness, right?
Mhm.
And you talk about those things. If someone sends something bad, like let's
Mhm.
say someone sends something and you're having friends with them, you get a DM that's inappropriate. They have two options. They can just swipe it and delete it and never tell you,
Mhm.
or they can open it and talk to you about it.
Yep.
I guess there's 3 options. Or they can, like, become
Engaged, yeah.
engaged with that, right? But, obviously, we wanna talk about, like, if you make a bad choice, I want you to feel like you can come to me. But another huge thing to consider is the fear of it being taken away.
Mm.
So, again, we may trust our kids, and so if
Yeah.
they have that open dialogue, but, like, let's say that Lila's had a phone and she's 14, 15 years old, and someone reaches out to her, and
Yeah.
she's been 100%
Right.
compliant with all of your rules, and all of a sudden, some creep reaches out to her, and she's honest with you about it, and then she's like, "Yeah, but if I tell her this, she's gonna freak out, and they're gonna take my phone."
Right. Right.
So sometimes
It's a really good
even the
point.
good kid chooses to just delete it, not look at it,
Mhm.
put it away, and then not say anything. And it's that tiny little first step of hiding it
Yeah.
that can be so that's what I've told parents. It's like it's not always like you're not trying to monitor
Mm.
with love, not suspicion for your kid that's gonna go make a mistake.
Right.
You're also monitoring with love, not suspicion for your kid who could have something happen to them.
Yeah.
And you need to you gotta protect that balance of having a consequence in place if they make a mistake or if someone
Right.
reaches out to that or taking it away, but also, like, I don't want you to be afraid to talk to me.
Mm.
Any conversation that we have at a certain age about your social media use and your phone is going to be a mutual like, you're part of this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
If you have earned the trust, you get a seat at the table. You get a part of this. So, but we're gonna talk about it because as your mom and your dad, this happened to you, and we're afraid it's gonna happen again.
Right.
And I'm glad you came to us, and I don't wanna just go take everything away from you and
Mhm.
isolate you, but at the same time, like, let's talk about this.
Yeah, like, is this the smartest app for you to be on? Could we potentially switch to something different?
Can we turn off your
Yeah.
how do you do that?
Privacy settings, all the things.
Instagram,
Yeah.
you could be on your home feed, and that's the people you follow, but then you hit the little magnifying glass, and that's just a search, and that's just anything. I mean, there's straight pornography on there. There's terrible things. There's, and then it's got algorithms and everything. So there's also just certain boundaries that people put in place where you're not just like doomsday scrolling through things.
Yeah.
Or also just maybe only who you follow. There's a lot of tangible things that we're not even discussing, but I think that the biggest takeaway for social media use is like at the end of the day, you are providing your child with adult content with a child's brain.
Yeah.
And if you're going to choose to do that, there's a lot of stuff to talk about because it's
Yeah.
a really, really big thing to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't give your kid a car when they're 12 because you think they're really
I've heard
responsible.
someone say you don't set a bunch of tequila shots out with your kid. Why are you just giving them? I mean, seriously, it's there are age limits on all of the things that in the world we consider to be a danger to our child, right? Driving, joining the military, drinking, all of the things, right? Smoking,
Mhm.
all of that stuff. We have age limits on it, but phone's fair game. iPads are fair game. So the limitations we have to set are the ones to protect the kids, just like the government is set for, the age of 16 or 17 to
What's
drive,
crazy
you know?
is like those things that do have a higher age limit are really kind of individual to that person.
Yeah.
You smoke, I mean, there's secondhand smoke, but I'm just saying, like, really the majority of it is just bad for their health.
Right.
If they go out and drive too young, like they could hurt someone else, yes. But with it's not coming to them.
Mm.
It's something they can avoid, but it's not coming at them. This is a like disguised thing of normalcy that
Mhm.
everyone has that becomes common, but is dangerous.
Yeah.
And so we have to learn as especially Christian parents how to navigate this in a way that acknowledges that it's real. Like, I don't think avoidance is the answer. I really don't. We're going to jump into that in the next episode with discernment. I've had to navigate this.
Yep.
You've navigated.
We're in the midst of
I don't feel like we even have the perfect answer, and I think it can change. I think that the pivot, like the opportunity to be flexible about that, is a huge part of it. But yeah, so just to kind of summarize those 6 points. Number one, delay the smartphone just as a whole. That can be done through flip phone, all the things. Number two, remove harmful apps / strip it back if you need to, Number three, no phones in the bedroom, or I would say the bathrooms, like isolation. One point to add to that is charge all of your phones, including yours, in the kitchen at night. And if that's a stretch, which I get it, I use mine as an alarm clock. Charge your kid's device somewhere else in the house. Set limits on it.
We always just put them up in a cabinet.
Just put them away somewhere where there's a boundary.
I always rotate because they find them.
They do. Number four, monitor with love, not suspicion. Number five, talk about identity daily. Talk about the why. Speak to the why. Number six, model healthy tech use ourselves. That's the last one that I was just saying. Like,
a huge one.
We have to show them that if it's having an impact on us, we're able to put it away. If we're addicted to it, I mean, from a Christian perspective, if it's an idol, like we're afraid to take that away from ourselves, then it's an idol.
Yeah, exactly. So if we're like, oh no, I have to put a screen limit on myself.
That's a problem. I don't want to do that. I have, and you can set it up as an adult. I have a screen limit for social media on my phone. It's like, do you want to, and I am 37 years old. I can give me 15 more minutes, but
sure.
It reminds you, I've already looked for an hour.
Well, and honestly, as crazy as it sounds, as adults, talk to your spouse. Have them be the one that has the screen time password. Like, not to be dumb, but like my husband's phone, he has asked for there to be a password on certain things. And I really appreciated that. He's like, I'm not a teenager anymore, but who knows? It's right there. It's a slippery slope. Can you put password protection? Drives him nuts because he'll try to look up something totally innocent. And it's like, I'm sorry, you need a password.
Absolutely.
It is, in his world. We'll have that conversation. We had that conversation. So that's just a little plug there.
Transparency. Right?
Transparency. But we're really excited to jump in discernment next week. I think that's, my poor kids, they learn that word quite young and they say it constantly. So it's definitely something that I think, we read this book that we're going to bring up next week that kind of taught us a little bit more about it and some apologetics. And it was always very helpful to me in my parenting. So we just wanted to share it with you guys in the midst of all of this and just the world we live in. I think we need discernment pretty much every second of every day. So
do the research yourself too. We're doing it. And that's what I would encourage you. Listen, you cannot ever have enough knowledge about this, and open that conversation with any other significant other parent in your home. Keep those conversations open with your kids and realize that it's a constant battle of just like the next thing, learning the next thing. And so we're going to walk alongside what's working for us, what we're doing now, what we are kind of projecting out for our future, and then what we've seen work well with the students that we work with.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in to the Project Revival podcast.